Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been about a week since we moved in with my parents into this house, and so far my mom has been kind enough to provide a full catering service to us. But now it is time that I get back into the kitchen, and I'm actually really looking forward to it since I've redecorated it, which if you haven't seen that video, it's linked up there. So what I'm doing today, it is Monday. It feels like a fresh start to the week. I'm stocking up on some of my essentials that I use in the kitchen all the time. And the first one of those is broth. I will be making two kinds, chicken and beef as well. The way I like to do chicken broth is I cook a whole chicken or bake a whole chicken. Hence, if you can hear the noise, that's the oven going, preheating. So I bake the whole chicken, I then pick the meat off the bones and then use the bones for the broth. So I'll stick the chicken into the oven and then I can get started on the beef one. I have prepared the beef meat, specifically beef neck is this one, the same way I prepared the chicken. So I just washed it, I patted it dry. That's important so that you get a nice sear right from the beginning. And you want to do that sear for ideally both of those meats so that your broth has this richer flavor to it. You don't have to. I could just put the meat in there, put the water in, start boiling it, and that would work fine. That would make broth as well. But I always like to sear the meat first, and same goes for the chicken. I mean, the chicken bones are going to get seared in the oven. As for the pot here, I will be searing the meat in a lard, which is a high smoke point, and it's already starting to smoke, so the meat is ready to go in. Alright, so the meat got nice and brown on all the sides. It wasn't perfect, and this isn't about making a perfect sear on the meat. It's not a steak or, something that you would present. It's just there to add the flavor. So I wasn't flipping it on all of the sides, just the, big ones that I wanted to get brown to, again, bring that flavor to the broth. I then poured all the water on it. Oh, by the way, maybe you've noticed in the beginning when I put the big chunk of meat in there, it got stuck to the bottom of the pot. Now, you don't need to worry if that happens, because after just a minute or two, once the crust forms on the meat, it's going to unstick itself. So you only need to leave it. Don't try to peel it off the bottom, because that will tear the meat and it just won't help. You just leave it, you wait, and I promise the meat is going to unstick. So that happened. I then could flip it. Same thing happened on the other side, same thing, I just waited. And now I poured all the water in and I'm slowly bringing this to a boil. At this point, I'm not adding anything else to the pot. No vegetables, no spices, nothing. And that is because I want to be able to collect the foam off the top of the pot. Now, this is a completely optional step. When I was starting to make broth, I never did this because I just wanted to make things easier for myself while I learn and kind of get more familiar and comfortable with the whole process. But my friend actually gave me this tip to do this, to get the water to boil with just the meat in it before adding anything else so that it is easier to collect the foam. So once it comes to a boil, then I'll take a spatula, take the foam out, and it is optional because the only really impact it has on the broth is the visual. If you don't collect the foam, it's going to kind of cloud the broth, the liquid, and so if you want like a clear, see-through liquid, you want to collect that foam, but it's not in any way harmful. It's not really going to change the taste of the broth, so hence why it's completely optional. Alright, so the foam is off, and I think even you can see on the camera that you can actually see the bottom of the pot here, and that's really good. Now again, I wasn't too precious with this. I didn't skim all of the foam, and that's totally fine. Again, not looking for perfection here. And now it is time to add more good stuff into the pot. I've got these vegetable, well, they're not really scraps, but they are from the freezer. So I actually have these packages in the freezer that have some carrot in them, some parsley, and some celery. And as you can see, like, they are not, pretty looking. I kept the peels on the carrots. I kept the skins on the carrots. I didn't peel them or the parsley. So I'm just putting these, they can go directly from the freezer into the pot. The only vegetable I don't have in those packages is onion, and that's because I usually have lots of onions on hand. Plus, I'm not sure how well it would freeze, but maybe it would be fine as well. So I'm just cutting it in half, again, leaving the skins on. That's going to give the broth even more of that golden color. So just dumping those in. And for the spices, I've got bay leaves. So taking 2 of those. And I have allspice. So just a couple of those little balls. Now the important thing with the broth is that you don't want it to boil wildly. You want it to simmer. And what that means is there's just a few little bubbles here and there coming to the surface, but there isn't a lot of like movement and liquid just, boiling everywhere. It really should be very low temperature for a long time. So I am going to put the lid back on this, and I will keep it going for 4 hours, 5 hours. It doesn't really matter. I'm not setting a timer for it or anything. I could, 3 hours in, I could already take some of this and use it. I could leave it for 5 hours, 8 hours, a whole day. I've heard people do like a continuous broth. Probably not a good idea with the beef meat in it, but like with the chicken bones, where you just take out the old bones from the liquid, you take some of that liquid, you put new bones into the pot, put a little bit more water in it, and you just keep going. So I guess that's possible too. So I'm done with the broth for now here and ready to move on to the next thing. Next up, I will be making something for a snack. I will be making banana and oats pancakes. Now, I am somebody who's not very trusting of things that are supposed to be sweet, yet they don't have sugar in them. But while these pancakes have no sugar and also no flour, they are so good and so sweet, and that's why I really like making these. And they're also super simple to make. I'm starting with the bananas here. I added 4
medium or maybe small-ish sized ones. And this is really the ingredient that determines the sweetness of the batter. As you can probably tell, mine are not super ripe. They're still a little bit green, so the pancakes did turn out a little bit less sweet than usual. So the more ripe your bananas are, the sweeter they will be. And this is of course perfect for overripe bananas, the ones that you wouldn't really want to eat raw, because you just mix it up into the batter. I then added the oats. I did about 8 spoons of those, but later I pretty much doubled that amount because the batter was just very runny. So to thicken it up, you just add more oats. If you run into the opposite issue and the batter is too thick, you can always thin it out with milk. I then sprinkled in a little bit of salt. I added cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of dry yeast, 2 big scoops of plain white yogurt, and I finished it off with 6 eggs. The recipe I was using for this also called for grated coconut, but I didn't have any, or shredded coconut, I didn't have any, so I just skipped that one. Feel free to add it if you want to.
Hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
Making the rest of the pancakes, hopefully no more burnt ones, but the first batch is always a bit crazy. My chicken got done, so I took it out of the oven, let it cool a little bit, and now I'm ready to take the meat off the bones. Also, none of this is going to waste, the drippings from the chicken, so I'm putting those into the pot. I will put all of the bones into the pot, and I'll save the meat for later. And I just wanted to mention, the reason why I love doing this is because I feel like I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm getting the bones that are already browned from the oven. I'm getting those for the broth, and I'm getting a bunch of cooked meat that I can just store either in the fridge or even throw them in the freezer. And I have meat that is ready and cooked, and I can just add it into soups, into sauces, into whatever I can think of, tortillas, just it makes things easier, I feel like. Both of my broths are still going on the stove, and it's the afternoon now, and I'm ready to move on to the next thing, which might be a bit of a surprise for you, because what I'm working on now is applesauce. I'm guessing not a lot of you would consider that an essential in your kitchen, but it definitely is for me. I use it so much, especially in our breakfast, where I will cook some oats in milk and then just add the applesauce, grab a little glass jar of the applesauce, add that in, and we have delicious breakfast on the table. I'm also doing this as a snack in some plain white yogurt, and there are so many ways how this could be used, so I would definitely recommend you try this if you haven't yet. But do let me know what you think about this, and if there are any other essentials that you were maybe expecting me to make and I didn't get to them. So while the applesauce is pretty easy in terms of instructions, it can be a bit labor intensive as you have to peel and cut all of the apples. I've already gotten a head start and I have quite a few here in the pot, but I will definitely add some more. And then this time I'm doing it a little bit differently because so far I've always only done like just pure apples, boil those, put them in the jars and can those. But this time I'm actually going to be adding some spices to the apples. So I'm really curious how that's going to turn out.
Side by side and through. No limit to what we can do. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
On the stove simmering for about 5 hours, so I want to store that away. I've got a couple different containers here. I have these silicone or this one silicone tray which I find really useful for the freezer. I know each of these cups is about 100 millimeters or just short of 100, so that's good to know for the storage. So I'll fill that up, and then I also have some glass jars, so some of that is going to go into the fridge, some of that into the freezer. I will see how much I have. As for the meat itself that's in the broth, I will put that in my glass container and I'll pour some broth over that as well so that the meat doesn't dry out. And I'm going to cook with that probably tomorrow. One more thing I wanted to mention, since I mentioned the cooking with the meat, that's pretty much the only thing that I have like an actual plan for. Like I know the exact meal I'm going to make with that meat. Everything else that I've been doing so far, like both of these broths, the applesauce and the pancakes are kind of more straightforward, but still, like I don't have a plan of how I'm going to use all of this broth, or when exactly are we going to eat all of those pancakes or the applesauce. It's just something that I want to have on hand, and then whenever I need it, it's there. So that's kind of how I think about these prep days, is that it's not really meal planning or meal prepping, because I don't have a specific plan for those meals. It's just things that I know I use in the kitchen all the time, and that's what I want to make sure that it's there ready for me.
apples have been cooking for about 20 minutes. They could have gone even less because they were super soft at the end, but again, like, this doesn't really matter all that much. I am crushing them all up anyways, just using a spoon this time since they were so soft. And in case you're wondering, I am putting the tea towel into the pot so that the jars don't like make all this clacking sound as they are boiling in the water. I let them boil for about 20 minutes. That should make sure that they are well sealed and well preserved. And the only thing I have left to do at the end of the day is to strain my chicken broth. So I'll do that at the very end, and that will be the end of this video. I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye.